Good morning to you. I am Edward Viljoen, and I am here to talk to you today about all sorts of things. Let's begin with our affirmation for this month. Won't you read it with me? I advocate for freedom of thought, and today's topic is living in choice. And the theme for the whole month is creativity. So when I put that all together, freedom of thought, creativity, choice, it makes me think of consequences, right? The creative consequences of our choices, but not in a scary way, not in a blaming way, like when my dog Cooper has done something bad and I say, "What have you done?" when we both know what he's done. No, it's different. This is rather more like we're just trying to become more aware of how life works. In other words, we're waking up a little bit more to the connection between creativity, choices, and how consequences are connected. And by the way, not all consequences are bad. There are both positive and negative consequences that flow from our life choices and activities. I remember reading Donald Altman. He wrote that beautiful book about mindfulness, living a mindful life. And in it, I don't remember the exact phrase, but he wrote something about how living a mindful life has something to do with owning up, owning the emotional wake left behind by our words and deeds. Oh, I love that. I've never forgotten that, especially that word, wake. And here it means the waves left behind a moving object as it goes through the water, like, for example, a boat in this photograph by Martin Adams taken from above. You can see the wake over there. It also means the path that is left behind as something passes. Like, to use a negative example, like trees destroyed in the wake of an angry storm. You and I leave a wake behind us as we move through life. It doesn't have to be destructive like an angry storm, though. That's where choice comes in. It has been a popular thing to say, I'm not responsible for how you react. I'm not responsible for how you think or feel. That's your choice. It turns out that there's a little more to it than that. It's a little more complicated than that. Because of the interconnectedness of all life, the wake I leave behind me ripples out through and over life. So yes, words do matter. Actions do matter. Intention really matters. Thoughts and feelings matter because they are all creative and powerful, and they leave behind them an ever-widening ripple of influences and consequences. That's how it is. Kevin and I were on a mini vacation. We were in Italy, and we went to Cinque Terre. I don't know if you've been there. It's a national park now. It's 5 small villages perched on cliff sides on the ocean. Very, very beautiful. So we decided to take a sunset boat ride so we could see the small villages from the ocean as the sun was setting. Very beautiful, And at one point, a larger party boat approached straight for us, moving very fast. And our captain had to react quickly. He had to turn the boat to face directly into the waves caused by the party boat. You see, if the captain wasn't paying attention, or if he just decided, I'm going to ignore the turbulence, if I can exaggerate, I can say we might have been capsized. You see, he had to turn into the waves and face it head on. He couldn't just go with the flow. And in that moment, our gentle sunset cruise was impacted by the wake of a fast-moving, rowdy party boat. It made me think about the consequences of my words and my deeds. They ripple out. They impact others. They could cause others to have to adjust and turn, cope, and deal. So, am I a rowdy party boat? Sometimes. Am I an angry storm? Am I a gentle breeze? Am I a warm, nourishing rain? See, when I think about that and I own it, it will influence me and the choices I make for how I speak and what I speak and what I allow and what I promote and what I cause and what I create. Because it turns out I am, just as you are, I am part of what I cause and create. I take my time with you on Sunday mornings very seriously. I spend a lot of time during the week thinking about what am I going to say. Because between many of us, there's a bond of trust. It's been formed over many, many years. So if I were to say something hateful that stirred up hateful sentiments, it's not going to be enough for me to say, oh, well, that's not my fault. It's how you took it. It's not enough for me to say you're responsible for how you took it. Well, of course you are, and it would be foolhardy for us to think that we don't influence each other, especially when there is a bond of trust. I understand exactly what kind of privilege I have in my job and the responsibilities I have. And why stop here at work? Why not take that awareness of responsibility and influence and wake and take that into the home? Why not take that onto social media? Why not take that into my friendships and relationships? Because to me, freedom of choice and freedom of speech does not and cannot ever mean freedom from consequences. I must admit that I make waves. Just like you do. You make waves. And sometimes we have to deal with each other's turbulence. We can't ignore it. If we do, we might be capsized. I can't just ignore turbulence, not in my marriage, not in my friendships, not in my work, not in my nation, not in my thoughts, not in my feelings, because when I have, it's turned me upside down. No, the safe way is to turn into it head on so that the turbulent waves can be navigated safely, even neutralized. And today I want to explore some practices that we can practice that help neutralize turbulent times, practices that leave a wake behind me that I can feel good about, practices that don't turn other people's lives upside down. Now, they're simple, but very powerful, and not to be underestimated. And the first one is to practice micro meditation for beneficial consequences during turbulent times. You know, when turbulence is headed my way, it's helpful for me to remember to turn into life, not away from life, to really savor life in micro moments so that I'm not capsized by trips and falls and stumbles. Claire Weaver, a doctor in psychology today, writes a beautiful article titled Micro Meditation for Maniacs. And in it she says, you know, like when turbulence is headed my way, stop what you're doing and find something lovely to look at. Now, she says in her office she's very lucky because there's a big, beautiful window. She can always look out of the window and see a plant or this or that or a spider web. But if you don't have any windows, a photograph or any beautiful object will work in this exercise. Then, she writes, gaze at the pretty thing and listen. Don't analyze, just listen to the sounds around you. And stop listening to the voice in your head and listen to the world around you. If you catch yourself identifying or evaluating a sound, just gently move on to the next one. And then, smell. Breathe slowly and deliberately and see if you can smell anything. Again, without assessing it. And then, feel. Feel your body, the air circulating around you, the support of whatever you're sitting on or standing on. And then, just float for a little bit on a sea of sensory awareness, veering gently away from all your mind's attempts to categorize, assess, capture. And as you breathe in, just say to yourself, just. And breathing out, be. And you repeat it for a few seconds. Just be. Even up to 5 minutes. And then at the end of the article she writes, I can promise almost that if you haven't meditated before, and even if you have, this may be hard to do at first. But I can also promise you that if you try it 4 to 5 times a day, every day, it will gradually become easier. And I add to that, I think I can promise that you will develop a habit that will help you neutralize and navigate turbulent times. It will also help you become a person who makes a beneficial impact to the wake you leave behind you. The second practice is to check what your intuition is telling you so as to avoid making choices that result in undesirable consequences. In Science of Mind, we've learned that we have a built-in guidance system. We just have to remember to use it. You know, when turbulence is headed our way, that's the time to tune into our inner navigator. And the way you do that is before you speak, before you act, before you choose, if you can, you ask yourself, what am I doing? And why am I doing it? And then you take time to tune in to the feelings that arise, because that's how the inner navigator speaks. You take time to tune into also, what are you intending? And own that. Or another way of saying the whole thing is, listen to your heart honestly humbly, authentically. The next practice is to show up and connect with your community for lasting, healthy consequences. Now, social isolation is an epidemic in our nation. On one hand, we value radical individuality, independence, self-reliance. It's all about that. On the other hand, it turns out we don't thrive without each other. In reality, being with and around people turns out to be medicine for the soul. It's as important as good food, nutrition, exercise, and spiritual practice. The good news about this, though, is that you and I don't have to like each other. We don't even have to agree with each other. We just have to be around each other. So that when turbulence heads our way, then turn into life and show up for your community. There was a study at the University of Arizona that showed that having good, meaningful conversations is good for us. Because those kinds of conversations can help us sort out meaning in an otherwise pretty chaotic world. It can also help us to not feel alone. It can also help expand our view when that needs to happen. That's why our Sunday evening exploration that takes place at 7 p.m. right here at the center is so valuable. A place where you can talk and listen and be heard. That's why our diversity discussion group is so valuable. Or our grief support group, so valuable. Talking about what you believe in helps connect people. And it is important for me to add, don't force your meaningful conversations onto people who don't want to have them. Because that can create more turbulence for everyone. Just showing up and being around people and even having superficial conversations is enough to help us cope with turbulence. The next step is to thrive where you are, regardless of the turbulence that life brings your way. Because don't you know, so many people think that the right job, or the right relationship, or the right circumstance, or the right politics, the right something is what will bring the special change in their lives that will result in the calm waters of happiness. I suppose there is some truth in that as a possibility. However, we all know that at any moment, a rowdy, fast-moving party boat is headed our way. Could be passing any moment. And still, I'm going to thrive. Yes, I may be knocked about by life now and then, and still I'm going to thrive. That was the message of last week's. And if you missed it, you can see it online. It's available all the time. We talked about starting right where I am at any given moment, right now, and evaluating what are my options now. And while I'm doing that, to talk to myself, to remind myself, my mind is the center of creativity within the divine. I am here to calm the troubled waters. I am here as a function of the eternal peace of the divine that is showing up as me. Which leads me to the next gentle practice. Smile for immediate good consequences. This is something wonderful. You can practice this even when you don't feel like it. In that regard, it's very similar to forgiveness work. You just start even if you don't mean it. Yeah, it's miraculous. Smiling generates a mystical power, there's no doubt about it, and when practiced, may become habit forming. I drive my friends crazy, some of them, because I am often, not always, but I am often annoyingly optimistic. Always pointing out the possible gift and always looking on the bright side, except when I'm depressed or unhappy or sulking or mad or disappointed or frightened or frustrated or worried or obsessed or scared. You too? The reality is, happy people are not happy all of the time. It would be odd if they were. We all experience from time to time being sad, angry, disappointed, confused. Feeling pessimistic or negative now and then is normal. And if we find ourselves being persistently, ongoingly unhappy or depressed, it doesn't mean we are a spiritual failure. It means likely that you and I are going through something that we can't quite handle by ourselves. We all need help sometimes. That's normal. Even professional help, that's normal. I say that because depression is not something that you and I typically can smile our way through. Nevertheless, smiling has its own value, and it can certainly add to our healing process. An article by Dr. Mike Stybich says that smiling makes us attractive. We're drawn to it. So smiling, it turns out, is a mood changer. Apparently, it sends signals, triggers to our biology. And smiling is catchy. Do you know people smile back even though they don't know why? I'm trying to remember a situation. I can't remember it in detail, but I was dealing with somebody at a counter, and she was very grumpy. And I was smiling all the way through. And eventually, she looked up at me and said, "You know what?" I said, "Nothing, I'm just happy." And she said, "Well, it's annoying me." But don't you know she was smiling when she said that? Huh? Hashtag winning. The article says smiling is also an immune system booster. Who knew? Vitamin smile. Apparently, it also reduces your blood pressure, and it releases endorphins and serotonin. So it's like a natural high, a drug. Oh, you want to get high? Lock yourself up somewhere in your office, in your bedroom, and smile persistently for 10 minutes and come out all goofy. Apparently, smiling also makes you look younger. And we can learn more about the connection about spirituality and health on Friday at the free event with Jane Kennedy about the spirituality of health. Brings me to the last, two more to go. Wonderful. Nurture and care for friends for those soulful, deep, lasting consequences. And this is the sort of practice, try not to wait for turbulent times to practice this. I want to read to you from my book, Ordinary Goodness. It says, although many people may have hundreds of friends on social media, in reality, one person can nurture about 150 meaningful connections, whether that is on social media or in real life. The theoretical limit of 150 friends has become known as Dunbar's number, after the psychologist who reported it. It appears that we have limited resources to commit to meaningful connections. We can either spread it thinly among many people or thickly among fewer people. It's likely that a person has about 5 intimate friends, twice as many excellent friends, and about 50 very good friends. Beyond that, the people in our circles are likely acquaintances. How well do you know the people in your circles? Who can you go to for compassionate support? So there's your homework. Try this. Write down on a piece of paper the names of the people you can count on to help you when you are troubled. You know, the people who you can call anytime? Then make a plan to connect with those people and water those plants. Feed those plants. And you know what? If you are having trouble making a list right now, it's okay. We talked about that last week. Today, just like every day, is a new day, and with it, a new beginning. Go ahead, practice all the other points on the list, and expect friendships to emerge from it. The last point is one that really deserves a 6-month seminar all by itself. Yes. Apparently, practice forgiveness. I'm forgiving the slideshow right now. Practice forgiveness for those life-transforming consequences. And this is the one that you've got to do when you can and as you can. Think of the micro-meditation. Think of it in the same way. A little bit goes a long way. One of our members, Adrienne Bowes, is reading The Second Mountain by David Brooks. And in an email exchange, I realized that Adrienne does what I do and hand writes out passages that are meaningful. And she sent me a note with one passage, and to me, it sort of says everything and wraps up today's message in the light of all these steps. So I share it with you. I'll read it to you. When relationships are tender, when commitments are strong, when communication is pure, when the wounds of life have been absorbed and the wrongs forgiven, people bend towards each other, intertwine with one another, and some mystical combustion happens. Love emerges between people as a pure flame. I invite you to take a breath in with me and to exhale, letting your eyes close for a moment of silent contemplation. And to bring our silent time to a close, I invite you to let the next breath you take be much deeper than the one before, followed by a sigh,